Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences.
Get on with it.
So we're taking a look at the solo mode in this video, and if you haven't checked out my video on the multiplayer aspect in Endless Winter in general, I suggest you might want to do that before you start this one. It's you can come back to it later, I'll still be here. But the idea is that the solo mode is not just beat your own score, there is actually an AI that you play. What you do in the game is entirely the same. You do all the actions, you do your tiles, you do your actions, your cards and stuff like that, get victory points, all identical. The way the AI works is that for the most part they don't use any pieces, and they certainly don't use a lot of stuff on their board, but what they mainly have is a deck of cards. You know, depending on your difficulty level, you'll draw one or two of them to start a round, and they essentially have three things of note on them. They'll have the 4 different action columns with actions below them. They'll have the labor that they get in the Eclipse phase, depending on, which card is revealed at the top at that time. But they'll also have a priority arrow that points left or right and then up or down to represent, alright, if I'm picking up a card, I'm going to pick up the leftmost and the topmost. Nice and easy, really straightforward to follow. But the idea is that the above a column will be the worker that's pictured, and unless there is another column in there with a bonus that's worth taking from you, it's going to do whatever action is depicted on the card. The actions have there's 2 actions below each column, but then in subsequent turns what you do is you effectively draw a card, slide it to the middle line on this, and so instead of 2 actions, it will now do 3 actions of whichever column it picks. And then in the third turn, it will effectively do 4 actions rather than 3 actions. And if you're playing this on hard mode, we'll get to that a bit later, you essentially have 5 actions at that point. You'll start off with an extra card basically for the round. And that's essentially what the AI does. Now, the AI does not take a lot of bonuses that you would normally do. I mean, they've got a reference card here that converts a ton of stuff across. Like, for example, it's more interested in camps, megaliths, sacred stones, but, well, no, not even sacred stones. It's more interested in megaliths and the burial cards. But in terms of drawing a card from a deck, doesn't do it. It turns into a burial. Okay? What about getting more character cards? They don't get character cards, they just get tools. Okay? What about animal cards? Well, they get animal cards, but they never kill them off, so they just get food. And for the most part, they'll just get idle movement. So about half of the mechanics in the game, the computer doesn't do. And as much as I ragged on the megaliths in the previous multiplayer game, saying, oh, this feels very mechanical, feel very tacked on, truth be told, if you don't have the megaliths in the game, the solo mode would break instantly. So it's one of those things that I just have to live with and, deal with it. You couldn't remove the megaliths because you'd have to redesign most of the solo mode. But I found the solo mode pretty easy to pilot, at least from understanding its rules perspective. There's not a lot of rules for it. I mean, it's a reasonable sized rule book, but for the most part, you're mainly reading 3 pages. You've got the setup, well, 4 pages. You've got the setup, you've got playing the game with the cards, which, let's face it, I've already just explained how they work, and then you've got a couple of pages for the iconography to say, right, well, what does it do when it takes a megalith? What does it do when it does camps? And by the time you're done with one game of solo mode, you won't have to check this book very often again. It's not most intuitive, but the rules aren't particularly complex and there's not a ton of them. There's not this massive priority diagram as to what the thing does. It's literally just follow the arrow on the card and it will do it for you. Nice and straightforward. The camps are a little bit weird with this one though, because with multiplayer your camps are going all over the place and it's up to the players where they go. When it comes to the AI, they've got this little mini deck of camp cards. I believe it's somewhere around here. Here we go. Yep, just had to filter it out of this part. And essentially what happens is that any time it does the camp action, it flips one of these and it has a picture of the hexagon board map that you'll have, but basically it tells you where to put their 5 camps. So the Nomad, as it's called, already has its 5 camps on the various tiles. But what happens is every time it then has to draw another one of these cards, it moves the inner ring or the outer ring worth of camps across the map to wherever they go. And then depending on whether they've got them in a setup where they can do villages, they'll do villages like anyone else. But basically, whereas you normally have to get your camps down in the middle and spread them out and you can kind of do what you like, the computer just constantly, well, the AI just basically keeps rearranging them around the map in random places. And sometimes some really odd places. I mean, it may say, right, take them from these 3 and stick them around the other 3 on this end. Okay, great. Well, you're on 2 glaciers, mate, so have fun. I mean, no multiplayer opponent would put themselves on glaciers without the glacier mini module in the game, so it's kind of like, why is the Nomad on there? It's somewhat random, but I guess it's another way of doing camps and making it a bit easier to pilot it, because I feel that if you try to make it too much like a multiplayer experience with the camps, you'd probably have to overcomplicate it like crazy. Although saying that, this is definitely probably the most complicated part of piloting Nomad. In terms of its actions, it depends. When you get later on in the game, it's doing a lot of actions and it can take a while to go through its turns. But certainly, if you play this on hard mode, that extra action that you're doing throughout every single turn of the game really adds up. It's not so bad piloting 2 actions and then 3, then 4, but piloting 3 actions and then 4 and then 5 does elongate the AI turns a little bit. But once you're familiar with the rules, it again is not too difficult to pilot, particularly after you've played your first game all the way through. Honestly, if I was to choose between playing this with 4 players and playing solo, I'd actually rather play solo. 2 and 3 players I think is a bit more of an interesting multiplayer experience overall, but 4 players takes a long time. There's a lot to teach. I would actually just prefer to break this out solo. I think obviously it would be a lot quicker. I still get to do all the cool stuff, but the AI is not particularly difficult to pilot. It's a good, fun experience, if only it was a challenging one. Yeah, there is a flaw that is going around with this solo mode. A lot of people have mentioned it, and well, I'm not exactly going to hide behind it either or sugarcoat it. It's way too easy. I make a lot of flack on some games about their difficulties being stupidly high, where it's like, it's not fun if you give me a solo mode that is nigh on impossible to win or is based entirely on dumb luck. And yes, there's been some hitbacks on some of those, but still, I stand by that if the solo mode is too difficult, I'm a little bit put off. This goes to the other extreme though and makes it too easy to the point where you literally have to be on Quaaludes in order to actually not win this game on easy mode. Easy really does take the dictionary definition of easy. I'm not even convinced you can lose the game on easy mode unless this is the first time you've ever seen this game and you're learning it literally from the rulebook while doing the AI. Maybe you could lose easy mode, and even then, I feel like most gamers would pick the game up quick enough to deal with it. The problem is that the AI doesn't really do stuff like a typical multiplayer opponent would. It's doing stuff mainly randomly by the cards. It's getting a lot done, although most of what it does is basically megalith tiles and the idle board. That's really the 2 things it does to a great extent. But it's not like it's purposely trying to block you out of areas that you're going to. It's not like it's trying to take cards specifically that you're going for, particularly with animals. It's mainly the only reason this thing actually gets in your way for the most part is the fact that it takes the actions that give you the bonus if they're available. That's annoying, but then the multiplayer opponent would do that, so that makes sense. Otherwise, it's basically just random draw the cards and it does what it does. This means that the AI player could do really well, but it also means that they could do really bad. But still, on easy mode, it just doesn't get enough done to pose a challenge. So okay, let's play it on hard. I have played this several times on hard, I've never lost. Kneel before Zod! Yeah, it's still easy on hard mode. Now granted, you can't just cakewalk the thing on hard mode, but still, if you're reasonably competent with the game, you can still beat the AI by a decent 10-15 points on hard mode, which has actually caused the publisher to bring out a expert variant for the solo mode online that I think you print off Board Game Geek. I've not tried any of the expert variants there. I'm sure they will probably do the job in making this more challenging, but gotta look at what you get in the box. You know, the box difficulty is too easy and you don't get a free pass because you fix the game after the fact, because surely during playtesting you should have noticed that the game was far too easy on easy and hard mode. I mean, literally, I played it on hard mode several times. I didn't even ever play it on easy. I played it on hard because I heard that the difficulty was too easy and I've never lost. That alone tells me that the difficulty is too easy. I don't see how you didn't notice this, but I digress. At least you have brought out some variants to make it harder. The question is, are they enough? Hopefully they are, because if it's too easy, I don't have a desire to play it. So I honestly say that if you're going to play this solo, you need to download those expert variants and pretty much play them from the get-go. Maybe start off on hard mode to get used to the solo mode and how it functions, but then bring in the expert variants and never look back. That's only what I'm going to do anyway. So with that blemish aside, the solo mode is still good fun. I really enjoy it. It's a nice, easy one to pilot once you get the hang of what it does for certain actions. The fact that it ignores a lot of the bonuses is a good thing, because it means you can go, all right, it gets that, oh yeah, it just gets a tool and gets a food, all right, fine, nice and easy. It's more annoying that you've got to play with this megalith puzzle from a big standpoint, but I guess the AI's got to get points somehow, and certainly the area control aspect where it's got its 5 camps basically doing musical chairs around the board is kind of weird, but it works. It's an easy priority system with the arrow. It's definitely something that, you know, requires you to at least think, particularly on, you know, hard and I'm sure expert mode, but just not easy mode. And I just like the fact that it's easy to pilot compared to a lot of AIs. You know, this is kind of on the same levels as, say, a Garfield Games style AI, you know, like Viscounts and Architects of the West Kingdom, like the newest ones. Their AIs, not too difficult to pilot, but they got a few little rules that you got to bear in mind, and they obviously have the way that their cards work, but this is kind of on that same difficulty level. This is nowhere near the likes of, say, a David Turksy solo mode, which has a ton of diagrams, a ton of complex rules, and is obviously designed for a lot of heavier games. Those ones are more expert level solo modes. This one's a bit more midweight and easier enough to handle, but still good fun. And I think with those expert variants in there, if they do the trick, then this will be a good solo mode for me to pull out every once in a while, particularly if it's a choice between 9 and 4 players. But if those expert variants don't work, then it could spell doom for the solo mode, because if it's too easy, it's not fun. But if it's too hard, it's not fun. So, you know, being fair here, difficulty is a difficult, yeah, no pun intended, difficulty is a difficult thing to balance in a solo mode. But still, you gotta get it right. And you gotta get it right at the get-go, not after the fact. But I digress. Maybe you want it to be nice and easy. Maybe the hard mode is actually challenging enough for you, in which case great. But we shall see. But for now, it's still a pretty decent solo mode. But I'm giving the solo mode the same rating that I gave the other one, 8 out of 10. It's good fun. I would definitely prefer it to 4-player. Not too difficult to pilot, and it's certainly a worthy inclusion in this game. But that difficulty problem is a big problem, because you have to deal with the fact that this thing is already mechanically very different from a typical multiplayer opponent, but then you also have to realize that it's pretty much doing everything randomly, and because the difficulty is too easy, you're pretty much going to ruffle stomp this thing like crazy, and I'm having to hope for the variants on a download to save the solo mode from, well, no pun intended again, extinction. So it's one of those things, but hopefully it will work out for the better. So that's it for me on this video. If you like what you see, then by all means hurry up and check out the Endless Winter actual video. This is just the solo mode bolt-on. But of course, check out more content on the channel, including the Bonanza reviews I did recently. And of course, you know, there's definitely going to be more collaborations in the future, but I did the overrated games with All Aboard Gamer. And well, you want to make a few enemies? Certainly check out that one. It's a lengthy one, but a good fun one. Take care, and remember, as always, regardless if you want to play with others or by yourself, it's still only a game. Bye for now.
I was frozen today!